So here we are in step 7 of vocal editing. We are now into timing correction. Now I should mention everything we've done up until this point, other than maybe creating a comp, has been largely focused on technical issues of the recording itself. Things like removing noise that we just didn't want there, the low frequency noise, fixing loud breath sounds, fixing the sibilants, plosives, those are all things that are more problems with the technical quality of the actual recording. In fact, some of these things are things that you can simply improve by just recording in a better space or doing a better setup with your microphone. Timing correction and pitch correction, on the other hand, have a lot more to do with changing the actual performance of the artist and not as much the technical recording quality. So because of that, you want to kind of be a little bit careful in terms of what you're doing because you are literally changing the performance. So generally speaking, I like to think of these two things as less is more. Only do what's really absolutely necessary. And if something does have to be fixed, try to do it in the kind of most subtle and transparent way as possible. So for our timing correction, we're going to use actually one of the tracks in our chorus or our hook. So we're going to take a listen to just the whole thing first, and then we'll start diving in here. Will be just another tantrum. You do what you want. You do what you want to do. You do what you want. What you want. And there's no reasoning. You do what you want. You do what you want to do. You do what you want. What you want. And there's no reasoning. Cool. And so the tracks that we're going to look at are these two down here, these two backing vocals. One is almost more of a vocal percussion sort of thing going on. So let's just take a listen here. Let's scoot this over here. What you want? Wanna do? What you want? They're very awkward to hear by themselves, and there probably should be a little bit more done from a trimming and fading standpoint, because you'll notice when we solo these things, you can hear an awful lot of, just mouth noise and that kind of stuff. But, this is also a good point to notice that sometimes that stuff really isn't noticeable in a full mix. So, just something to kind of consider. So here's the issue. Let's zoom in here just a little bit further. And let's go over here. All right, so okay, it's okay. To me, there's a pretty big problem right here. You can hear those two guys don't quite line up with each other all the way. And actually, I've already fixed it. I'm going to just kind of show you the fixed version first so you can hear the difference. We'll zoom in here and just kind of see where those edits are. You can see, I'll explain what's going on here. And then you'll see that I did some editing over here in measure 18 and 19 as well. So here's the fixed version. I guess I can solve that for you. And actually, I'm going to turn the metronome so you can hear it better. Now compare that to the unfixed version. What you should be noticing, hopefully, is that the ends right here just line up better than they did before. Here's the original version. Now right there, they just don't quite lock in together. Right? Compare that to this. It's just a heck of a lot tighter, right? Okay, so how do we do that? Let me unsolo these. Actually, I'm going to mute them so we don't have to deal with those. And for now, we're just going to double click. And obviously that gives us our track editor down here. But what we need to do to fix timing issues is we have to turn on flex. And so that's this little button right here. And when we click it, usually the first time you click it, it's going to ask you, do you want to turn on flex? And then you'll say, yes, I do, and it will turn itself on. And then we need to choose which type of flex algorithm do we want to use. Obviously, there's quite a few options here for flex time. We're not really going to get into all of the differences of these. We're going to look at this more as a kind of, we're just dealing with trying to fix a problem in a solo vocal. All right, so I like to use the monophonic algorithm for solo vocals. The slicing tends to be really good for when you're working with drums, but for now we've obviously got a vocal, so we're going to go monophonic. I'm going to just zoom in here. And then you'll see we've got these dotted lines. What the dotted lines are is essentially the transients of each of the different notes that I sang. So like if we just listen to this little bit right here, you can kind of hear all those extra little bits, what you want. Right, that's the beginning of each one of those notes, essentially. And you'll notice, we're just a little bit off right there, maybe a little bit early with it. And so what we can do is I can put in individual markers on each of these transients, and then I can move them around. But you got to be real careful with this, because watch what happens when I start shifting this one to the right. Everything after it also starts moving as well. So even if I line that up, now everything else is out of time. So I'm going to undo that. Now you'll notice if I move the one in the middle, it's the only one moving, because we've essentially got barriers on the right side and the left side that are locking it in place. Let me undo that as well, and then show you a neat little trick. So instead of clicking and adding single ones of these, if this is the transient that I want to move, if I hover on the bottom half of this editing area, you'll see I get these 3 marker icon. And if I click there, we get the 3 markers. And so now if I move this middle one around, the rest of them to the left and to the right of those boundary markers stay still. And so now I can get this guy locked right in on the downbeat of measure 19. If I want to edit this guy as well, I'm going to click down there. And actually I'm going to add another extra set of markers here. And we'll lock this guy right in there, and this one right in there. Ooh, right there. Right, you can hear a little bit of low frequency noise. We should probably remove that as well. Right, and then this to me is also something we would probably want to get in there and maybe just remove entirely, because it's not actually part of the... All right, cool. So that one's good. So now let's go into this one as well. And actually, there we go. I'm going to actually clear all of these. We're going to just reset all of our flex edits here. There we go. And same thing, right? We would turn on our flex, and then we'll go in here and choose the monophonic option. And let's listen to this track. Yeah, and you can hear like that's just straight up out of time. This sound right here should be right on the downbeat. It should go and a 1. All right, so we're gonna have to move a bunch of stuff around here. So we'll click down at the bottom here. Again, we get the 3 markers. Scoot this guy into place where he's supposed to be. This should be on the And I'll add a couple more markers here and just kind of tidy up all of these guys. And we'll do the same thing down over here. Now, I should mention it doesn't really hurt anything to put in markers if you don't actually change anything. So all these markers aren't really doing anything until I actually move one of them. There we go. So we'll put those guys like right smack in time. Actually, now that I'm listening to it, I'm actually wondering if that's supposed to be ending on the instead. Let's listen to it with this guy. Sounds pretty good, actually. Let's listen to it with the rest of the track. You do what you want, but you want. Yeah. You do what you want, but you want. Yeah, it's just a heck of a lot tighter right there right now. So that's kind of the idea is, we use this for generally small problems with timing. I'm also not suggesting that you should go through your track and fix every single moment. You'll notice I kind of keyed in on a moment that to me was just noticeable, was noticeably out of time. The easiest fix, of course, would be to just have the vocalist record it again. And if they can get it right in time, perfect. That saves you probably 3 times, 10 times as much time in editing if they can just get it right in the microphone. But if they didn't and you don't notice it until later on, then we got to fix it. And so, again, don't go through your whole track and try to line every single thing up perfectly on the grid, because then you lose some of that humanness, actually a lot of the humanness to the performance. I use this really specifically for noticeable problems that just kind of have to be fixed for it to feel rhythmically tight, for things to work well together. All right, so that is how we deal with fixing timing issues in Logic.